Your operations are the heartbeat to your business. I created this podcast to help you balance your childlike innovation with parent-like efficiency. Welcome to Daily Ops Boost. I was having a conversation the other day with my good friend, Mr. Raymond Johnston over at Right Hook Digital, and he was telling me a little bit about their audit process, and I love the way that they did this, and I wish I would have done this in our agency because I think we would have gotten a few more deals across the line because we had the expertise, but maybe we just got outbid by another agency, or potentially it wasn't the right fit because we weren't able to show enough expertise right off the bat. And the strategy that I'm talking about is audits and running audits for a prospect before they actually come into the service. And we actually do this inside of our consultancy now. It's been one of the number one ways to show our expertise and show that we can solve the challenges that the prospect is currently having and show our expertise and be able to say, hey, these are the areas of opportunity. Here's what we would specifically fix, and not necessarily the how-to or the done-for-you style service like an agency normally does, but it is the what of like, hey, this is what needs to happen and what needs to be fixed inside of the organization in order to hit the goals that you're wanting to hit. And so with these audits, and we see it quite often as like the selling proposition is we'll do a free audit for your e-commerce store or for any business that you're running either ads to or whatever your agency service is, right? Like you could do audits for a bunch of different things. But with that being said, the audit structure always seems to be free for some reason, and it's a good foot in the door, and I guess I get it from a standpoint of like trying to get your first clients through the door, but eventually that time spent on the audit becomes pretty much a loss, right? Because you're spending a decent amount of time on these audits. It could take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours to do one of these audits. And so for us, I've always been kind of intrigued by people that charge for the audits, and Mr. Raymond Johnston told me about how they charge for audits, right? And upwards of $1,000 to $3,000 for an audit, depending on the scope of the service that the prospect is kind of looking for. And so with these audits, it's such a great foot in the door, but oftentimes if we're offering it for free, we kind of do a half-assed job of completing it, right? And we're not putting in all the details that we possibly could. We're not giving it the time it actually needs because it doesn't pay us, right? And so this is kind of my way of saying like, hey, like maybe we should start charging for audits, right? Charge at least at a minimum to cover your time, right? But if we can make some profit off of it as well and be able to roll that person into an ongoing service, it's totally worth it. But let's do our audits extremely in depth. And if we're getting paid for it, we're just going to do a better job overall because the expectation of the audit is just going to be higher. And as an example, like for our consultancy, we charge $3,000 just to do an audit, right? And so this audit, it's super in depth. We go extremely in depth into each business, and we lay out a framework and exactly what needs to get fixed for every single level of each department. And so with that being said, the idea of an audit is like, it's a great foot in the door, but only if it's done well. And usually it's not going to be done well if it's free. So start charging for your audits. And there's kind of two different strategies that you can roll out. Originally, when we rolled out our audits, we would prorate the first month's invoice if they decided to continue on. So it was almost like a no harm, no foul, because chances are we're going to have to do an audit if someone signs up for our service anyway. But it allowed us to get our foot in the door, get the audit rolling, and get paid for it. And then worst case scenario, we would prorate the first month's invoice with the audit amount, right? So if it's $3,000 and the service is $5,000, we would just charge $2,000 as the difference. And from there, it was kind of like, hey, like, you could take the audit and you could do this yourself with your team, or you can take this to another agency, whatever it is. But it'll be good information to get back inside of your business. Or you could take that amount that you paid and you can pay a prorated amount for your first month's invoice, and we'll just roll that amount into there. So a really good tactic, but eventually as your agency continues to grow, you can solidify yourself as a market leader. You don't have to prorate the first the audit into the first month's invoice, right? And so that's what we do now is like we charge for the audit. So we charge the $3,000 for our time, and then we just roll them into ongoing service of this is what it's going to cost to continue with us. So we used to prorate, we don't prorate anymore. Now we just say, hey, this is the audit. And then from there, we have a offer for them at the end of the audit as well. So for us, like we just roll them into an ongoing service and without prorating at all. And for us, like it just takes a little bit of that market leader positioning to do that, but a really good or a really good way to try it out is like, hey, during the pitch of the audit, you could say, hey, we're going to prorate the first month's invoice, get used to it, right? And it's a really good selling mechanism for getting them into ongoing service because you're able to show your expertise. You're able to point out a lot of the challenges inside of their business and how you would specifically solve them. So it's a really great way to get your foot in the door and be able to get the agency or the brand or whoever you're serving an idea of what it looks like to work with you. And so with that being said, try out the audit process. It's super helpful. Okay, charge for your audits. I know a lot of people that run audits for free, and it can be tough sometimes because you can do a lot of audits with very minimal return, right? Remember, like at the end of the day, people will value what you charge them for more than what you give them for free. So charge for your audits. Worst case scenario, you can just prorate it, and then eventually you don't have to prorate it. You just get paid for your time and then roll them into ongoing engagement. That's all I got for you guys today. Hope that is helpful. We will see you on the next one. Peace. Yo, thank you so much for listening in to Daily Ops Boost. We really appreciate your attention. If you're enjoying the shorter form content, you're going to absolutely love the long form content that we post over on YouTube. We do a live stream every single week, 7 p.m. Central Time. Go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's called Agency Therapy. We'll see you over there.